The whole world is laughing at the Russian army. Putin still has a strong argument in this war: nuclear weapons. From the first days of this war, he started threatening the world with a nuclear strike. Let's discuss whether Putin can launch a tactical nuclear strike against Ukraine in order to force Ukraine to capitulate. The first thing to understand is this: Russian military doctrine does not allow the use of nuclear weapons in such cases. They can only be used if there is a threat to the existence of Russia itself. But even if Putin loses the war in Ukraine, this will not make Russia disappear. The most that could happen would be the collapse of Vladimir Putin's regime itself. But that is exactly what Putin is afraid of. Many military experts from around the world fear that Putin may decide to use nuclear weapons to preserve his personal power. On the one hand, Putin may be hindered by the military from his personal entourage. Many generals in the Russian army who have wives and children would not want a nuclear apocalypse. Surely they would not follow Putin's orders to use nuclear weapons. Putin himself understands this, so far he is in no hurry to go beyond threats. But just the other day, it became known that in the ranks of the Russian security forces, the military began to disappear. Some generals were arrested. Others have long been out of contact and do not appear in public. No one knows exactly what is going on behind the scenes of the Russian regime. Perhaps Putin is trying to get rid of those security and law enforcement officials who could sabotage his orders and potentially kill him. The very fact that Putin is using nuclear blackmail shows that he has no other arguments left. He has driven himself into a dead end. The decision to attack Ukraine was a momentous one for Putin. He is now on the verge of losing not only his power, but also his life in the near future. Therefore, anything can be expected from Putin now, as he will fight for his existence. He's becoming like a wounded beast, which in its agony, dying is still quite dangerous. The whole world must consolidate all efforts to make it impossible for Russia to use nuclear weapons. But let's take a look at what will happen to the world if Putin does decide to go nuclear. The Federation of American Scientists recently estimated that Russia possesses nearly 6,000 nuclear warheads, including 1,500 decommissioned warheads that must be disposed of. Moreover, even the most low-yield nuclear missile could kill thousands of people and lead to an environmental catastrophe. Thus, the nuclear potential of Russia is hypothetically capable of destroying most of the planet, and the part of the planet that remained relatively unharmed would be uninhabitable. In addition, Moscow possesses the so-called nuclear triad. That is, weapons that make it possible to carry out nuclear attacks in land, sea, and air formats. At first glance, the threat is more than serious. But let's look at this picture from the other side. It's obvious that in case of even a single nuclear strike, Putin will not only turn himself into a political corpse and a persona non grata, but will also doom almost all of Russia. Both the United States and the leading European powers have systems of inevitable retaliation, or as they are commonly called, dead hands. These are systems that guarantee a retaliatory strike against the enemy in a fully automatic mode. Thus, Putin's pushing the red button would practically be tantamount to suicide, because the retaliatory strike would hit Russian territory in less than an hour. Therefore, the Russian military will almost 100% not follow Putin's order to launch a nuclear war. Everybody wants to live. So why does Putin keep blackmailing the Western world with a nuclear baton? The answer is simple. On the fourth day of the war in Ukraine, seeing that the war is not going according to plan and fearing the entry into the conflict of NATO countries and the United States itself, Putin decides to be ahead of the game and scare everyone with nuclear weapons, in his usual sly manner. In part, his threats worked. NATO countries decided not to take part in this war. But on the other hand, the NATO countries began to provide the strongest support to Ukraine with money and weapons. It is thanks to this support that Ukraine was able to completely stop Putin's offensive and inflict crushing losses on his army. Now it's up to time. Soon we will see a complete victory for Ukraine and the collapse of Vladimir Putin's regime.